The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 145.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Sealana, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books to TV shows and more, we are looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in Star Wars. So if you like to explore, you are in the right place. Today, we are diving into The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 4, entitled Faster. Joining me today are Leadfoot Mama, Kathryn Laffrey. Hi, Kathryn.
Hello.
And insert racer name here, Ryan Nafziger. Hello there.
Hello there.
Yes, if you want to submit a racer name for Ryan, please email us starwars@sqpn.com. All right, everyone. So regular listeners to the show will know that we have a recurring segment called Ham Solo, where we mention any Star Wars happenings in our daily life. And our co-host Mike Creevy this week shares that he stopped by his local deli and showed us a picture of his order ticket for some hickory smoked turkey meat. And the ticket reads, "This order prepared for tech." And so Mike said that he just had to give a shout out to his new favorite pod racer. So I thought that was pretty cool. I loved it.
Tech, is that it? Really? Just tech?
Exactly. So before we get into this episode, however, something else big happened for Star Wars fans since the recording of last week's podcast. And that was the release of the trailer for The Mandalorian Season 3. So we want to respect all those of you out there who want to avoid spoilers from trailers. So we're just going to talk about our impressions, our expectations, our hopes for Season 3. So Ryan, we'll start with you. What are you hoping to see from this next season of The Mandalorian?
Well, I'm hoping to see a little bit of crossover between The Mandalorian. I want to see some Rebels crossover. I would love to see live action Sabine. And also something that I've been hoping for a long time is I hope that The Mandalorian integrates some of the characters we've seen in the sequel trilogy, because we have a whole cast of actors from the sequel trilogy that are very talented and very fun. And while we can't see, them as they appeared in the sequel trilogy, maybe we'll see a young Ben Solo, or maybe we'll see, I don't know, what's his name? Snoke walking around. I don't know. Snoke walking around is unlikely, but I'd love to see a little bit of sort of a transitionary sort of series into a little bit more engagement with the new trilogy.
Cool. How about you, Kathryn?
I'd definitely love to see what's going to happen next with the whole cloning tidbits they threw at us.
Oh, yeah.
With Grogu in the first. It's like, I need more on that storyline. And I'm just excited to see Mandalore again. I would, just to see all of them and their different colors and outfits. And yeah, it'll be exciting. And please crossover with Rebels, anything and everything.
We know you love it. Yeah. I think I'm looking forward to learning more about the identity of the Mandalorians. What does it mean to be a Mandalorian? All the traditions and the lore and the mythology of their culture. And honestly, the music is good enough reason to watch the show for me. I mean, I like the show a lot. The music itself is just phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to that. So yes, that was kind of our little preview, and no spoilers there. So as Mike Creevy explained a couple of weeks ago, when The Mandalorian Season 3 begins on March 1st, 2023, we will be pausing our coverage of The Bad Batch to cover The Mandalorian. And then afterwards, we will jump back into the adventures of Clone Force 99. So now for today's main discussion, let's talk about Bastard. This episode on StarWars.com is simply summarized as the team enters the colorful and dangerous world of racing. So I'm going to throw it to our crew now. What were your overall first impressions of this episode of The Bad Batch? Kathryn, let's start with you.
Well, there's some great crossovers and characters that I hadn't seen before. They were, the big fella in there now with his little tusk sticking out of his jaw. Right away, I thought of Lilo and Stitch. He looked like that Ganto character in Lilo and Stitch. So it made me chuckle at first. But yeah, it just kind of took me back. I'll date myself. It took me back to Speed Racer days. I mean, go Speed Racer. Loved watching that show, and it just kind of had that same fun feel.
Oh, yeah. How about you, Ryan?
Well, as a episode 1 pod racer video game enjoyer from the Nintendo 64 era, this was a really fun episode for me. My favorite part of the whole episode was seeing the crossover between the pod racing in episode 1 and how things are kind of evolving, I guess, in the Star Wars racing scene. You don't necessarily have the pure racing, you have battle racing, which was really fun. I loved the riot racing with the random Mad Max homages of saw blades and grabbers and blasters. That was really fun. And what's the droid's name? What's his name? Teo. Yes. Teo was very fun because his voice actor, of course, played Sonic in the new Sonic movies, which of course, Teo is blue, so we know what they were trying to do. So that was my initial thoughts.
That's so cool. I did not even make that connection, to be honest with you. And yeah, definitely lots of fun comedic moments with Teo and the Speedway announcer as well. Safatoma Speedway is not liable for any injury, death, or disintegration. Thank you.
Oh, that was right after someone got smashed, right?
Yeah. That was great. But I also when I was reflecting on this episode and rewatching it, I was like, wow, this was one of those episodes where it's deceptively simple on the surface. But then when you're looking at kind of some of the themes that they're exploring with the dialogue, I was a little bit amazed at how deep we can really reflect on this. So let's kind of dive in then. So the opening scene, I mean, this is another thing where I was like, wow, when I rewatched it, because it was actually a foreshadowing or a hint at the themes of surprise and strategy. Because Omega surprises Wrecker in this game of Dajaric that they're playing. And she's like, well, now you owe me 2 cartons of Mantel Mix. And then Wrecker's like, oh, let's do another game, Double or Nothing. And that reminded me of what happens in the episode.
Yeah.
So
that was,
I don't know if you guys
definitely foreshadowing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we learn that Hunter and Echo are out on this mission, quote unquote. They're transporting 50 cases of Nerf nuggets. Do we know what Nerf nuggets are? I didn't look that up.
Can't tell if it's food, fertilizer, or something else.
Oh, don't forget what Leia said, you scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Nerf herder, right?
So, yes, whatever the nerf is. Some shaggy beast, probably.
Yep.
But anyway, that's what they're up to. And so Tech is complaining that that's not a proper mission or proper use of our skill set. And I think that's another way of kind of foreshadowing what's going on later in the episode and what he's going to be talking about. But again, going with the theme of surprise, Sid is like, well, just get on the ship. I'm not going to tell you what's happening. We're just going to go. So they go to this place called Safatoma, which is apparently a very busy desert planet known for a sport that we're introduced to called riot racing. And now the name Safatoma, I actually looked it up. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, that both of those words are Arabic. And so Safa means clarity. And it's actually important in the Muslim faith because Safa is the name of one of the holy mountains that is traveled during the pilgrimage of the Hajj. And Toma means twin, which is comes from the Aramaic word where we get the name Thomas. So there you go. I always wonder, like, how do they come up with these names of planets? And I know sometimes they can name it after someone, maybe that whoever's working on the show, knows this person. But I also kind of, when I was looking at those words, clarity and twin, I was thinking about the character of Tech and what we see in this episode from him. And so maybe we'll talk about that later, but I just kind of, that's what's on my brain. So what did you guys think about Safatoma and riot racing and kind of bringing all of this into the Bad Batch and back into like Star Wars animation?
It was fun to see another type of racing, the riot racing. And it just so happened last night, my daughter and I flipped to Ready Player One was on TV right at the race. And the whole time I'm going, wait a minute, I just saw this. The little barriers popping up out of nowhere, a secret passageway that gets you to the end. And even the hole in the road, it looked exactly like it. So I was like, it's a little homage to Ready Player One. I don't know.
Yeah, Ryan, you talked about like playing a lot of video games. So I'm sure this was totally up your alley.
Oh, yeah, this was really fun. Many hours spent in front of the TV, piloting all sorts of random aliens around in episode 1 pod racing was the first thing that came to my mind. I was happy to see the same species as the obscure racer Clegg Holdfast from Star Wars episode 1 in the pod race scene, his species getting represented, which is the second time we've ever seen his species show up in a Star Wars movie at all. Nerd moment aside, the thing that stuck out to me the most was all the repurposed droids. We saw so many of the just battle droids. We saw, what are those guys called? Not assassin droids, but the like elite battle droids. I don't remember, but we saw one of their heads, and then some C-3PO body parts as well, which was kind of jarring. But yeah, we saw some really colorful and strange figures, as well as we saw I think this was the first time we've ever seen the 3 aliens from 3 different eras of Star Wars in one shot. So we had the Gamorrean from the original trilogy, the Clegg Holdfast species from the sequel trilogy, and the main very big alien from I believe he was in Solo, was when his species first debuted. So we had 3 aliens, all from 3 different eras of Star Wars. Oh, and there was a feathered Trandoshan, which was debuted in Clone Wars. So there you go. You have 4 different eras of Star Wars, all represented at the same time.
Yeah, it was definitely a riot. It was a lot of amazing. It was very colorful, and I think all of us as Star Wars fans, we love when there's so much mixing and mingling of the different like alien races and droids and just get all of them together and have a good time. And let's talk about Teo, because we are introduced to this interesting droid that Sid is betting on. I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are on this. Can I say this guy? Because I feel like he was very human.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. He looked like something American pickers would have picked up and thrown together, a little motorcycle part here, a hot rod part there, and a ton of attitude. It was fun, just fun to watch and listen to him and the way he moved, and even the way his head flipped upside down when he wanted to talk to you and you were behind him. It was just, just a fun thing. I mean, you could totally like pick apart, motor parts all over that guy. He was made for racing.
Reminded me of L3.
Oh, yeah, because of the
Solo.
Sassiness.
Yeah, the attitude. L3 attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe the word is just like overly confident. I don't know if they were going for some stereotype of like a race car driver being, really, the kind of person or droid in this case that would be a race car driver, like a thrill seeker and someone who's super confident. And he immediately challenges Tech, asking like, can you make this split second decisions, right, that are needed to win? And that kind of goes back to my theory about the planet name, Clarity and Twin, because like the interaction between Tech and Teo kind of seemed to me like they almost switched. Like Tech was almost more like a droid and Teo was more like a human. Did you get that vibe too?
Oh, definitely. I felt like Tech was like outwizzing the supposed wizard of the machine world there. Yeah.
Thought it was funny where Teo was like, calculations are useless. And Tech is like, I have to learn the race and analyze it. And I was like, this is opposite of what we normally hear. This is like a Han and C-3PO conversation, but the roles are reversed.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was really interesting. It was like the idea of a twin, like, that Tech was almost like a droid, but he really wasn't, because ultimately he makes an interesting choice. So Teo, getting back into the story here, he's getting this speeder ready for the next race. Of course, we see him win the first one, and we meet this other intimidating character that we've been kind of talking about, Greenie Malegi, whom Sid refers to as Malegi. So did you all recognize his voice right away?
No, it took me a moment to figure out who that was, because I kept going to Ganto. So I was like, wait, is that the same actor? But no, it's not. And then I was trying to think of all the actors I know with those deep, full bass voices, and I had to look it up. And I was like, oh, okay, he's from Ghostbusters.
Right. Ernie Hudson, aka Winston Zedmore from the Ghostbusters films and video games and everything else Ghostbusters. So that was really neat. I don't know if that was like intentional, but his voice definitely fit the character. So Malegi and Sid, they seem to have this antagonistic relationship. What do you two think? I mean, do you have any theories behind what went on between Malegi and Sid in the past? Who do you think Malegi is, or who was Sid in her past? What's going on here? What do you think?
Well, Malegi obviously has an issue with her because he called out her full name.
Right.
And every parent knows you get the full name when there's a big problem. So, so I thought that was really interesting. To there's definitely, he's got a lot of dirt on her and a big, long history. Yeah. So, I'm wondering, I'm hoping all that'll come to light, because now I want to know, like, what happened between them. What was Sid up to in her past?
Curious how far the chain goes, because we know Sid's not the boss. We know, Malegi doesn't seem to be the kind of guy who is the boss. He seemed to be just like a powerful, crime lord. I wonder if we're gonna find that out this season. Who's the big person pulling the strings at the top, and how is the batch gonna react to finding out who they've really been working for this entire time? I mean, we've seen a whole lot of crime lords in Star Wars, especially animated Star Wars. So I doubt we're gonna see a Hondo at the top, but that would be hilarious.
Oh my gosh! I just thought, what if it's little Boba Fett?
I mean,
wow, that's
little
possible.
Boba Fett would be amazing, because then we'd see Alpha and Omega.
That's true. Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. I never even thought of that. But, you know, the fact that he used her full name, like you said, Kathryn, yeah, I mean, it could be that because he had some dirt on her, it could have been an intimidation thing, or it could have been like maybe she used to go by her full name and now she just goes by Sid because maybe she's changed. She really has changed. I want to talk about that later too, but going into the story again, we see this champion of Malegi, Speed Venom. Great name.
Yeah.
Ruthless racer. So they make a bet. The batch makes a bet again, or rather, Sid makes a bet against Speed Venom that Teo can beat him. And so Sid and our crew are watching as Teo gets apparently what's called venom crunched. And so they're in trouble. And so to save Sid from Malegi's threats, Omega proposes a double or nothing second race. And so Sid is taken as collateral. And the crew is patching up Teo and the speeder. And this is a part where I thought was where the writers were kind of getting into a deeper territory here, because Tech starts to reflect that, well, this isn't the first time that we've had to save Sid because of her dealings with individuals of questionable integrity. He says it's a problematic pattern. And, you know, this wasn't the first time that Tech expressed that some kind of concern about where the crew is going, how they're being used, how they're being treated. We've also seen Hunter and Echo expressing their own thoughts and concerns this season about the Bad Batch's future. So, you guys, I'm wondering about what you all are thinking of this and where the writers might be hinting at, or where we might be going in future episodes. Do you really see them breaking off from Sid in the near future? What have you been thinking about this as we've been going along in the season?
I've been wondering, at some point in time, they've got to break off from Sid. It just feels like it can't keep going on and on like this. It just wouldn't fit them as a group, as a family, to keep just relying on her. I know they've been trying to break away, and Omega at one point in time had paid off the entire team's debt by playing the game in the bar. So you know that at some point in time it's got to break off. I'm just hoping that the break off is not some crazy, thing on Sid's part to like let them down tremendously, or to try to sell them out in some way. Hopefully she would never sell out Omega, because that little girl has saved Sid's butt a couple times. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. What I think we're probably going to see is, this is my overarching theory for the whole show, I think we're going to see all of the clones have to make a decision between being used for something and being their own masters. Because we kind of see a comparison between Crosshair kind of being used for whatever the Empire wants to do. We have the Batch kind of just being given whatever Sid needs done, and they don't seem to either really like it that much. I know it's kind of hard to tell on Crosshair's part, but I think we're going to have to kind of we're going to see all the clones in a way kind of make a choice between who are they, and are they going to think of themselves as just a tool, or are they going to be, masters of their own destiny? So I think that's where we're kind of going, where we're going to see, well, this is yet another time where the batch has kind of not had the, what Crosshair said, not had the ability to apply their military tactics to something, which is a nice way of saying we kind of can't do anything and that we're used to this time around. So I think we're going to see, this is kind of the start of the batch's relationship with Sid maybe ending or changing or something.
Yeah, that's definitely a very viable theory, I would say, just based on all the hints and themes and reflections that we've had so far. And so we go from this garage scene to Milegi expressing, actually multiple times throughout the episode, that there is a different Sid that he knows from the old times, whom he hints, isn't or wasn't loyal or trustworthy. But Sid suggests that she's different now. So, we've only seen Sid in certain situations. Do you think that Sid is lying, that she maybe does have some things going on in the background that are not trustworthy? Do you think that she has changed? It all kind of centers around this question of, is it possible for a person to truly, make a change in their life? And that kind of goes along, with what you're saying, Ryan, about, what the Bad Batch, what the clones in general are reflecting on, right? Like, they were made for a particular purpose. They lived a certain life, but the Empire doesn't value them. So it's like, can we change our course, our direction? So we're seeing this from Sid now as well. What do you guys think about Sid, first of all?
I'd like to hope that there's a redemption. I mean, we have to. I mean, we're Catholic. Of course, we hope there's redemption for Sid. So, and then not only that, but I feel like every episode we see her, there's a softening in her expression. I mean, even in this episode, there are a couple simple, subtle facial expressions she made that you can tell she's definitely softening up. She sees that that this group cares for her, that Omega cares for her in a way that probably she's never experienced in her past life. So, hopefully she will hold on to that and not just slide into what she was before, but just because we don't know what it was exactly, but obviously she knows her way around the bar. So
I hope Sid doesn't have some sort of tragic ending, because that would sure be terrible. I don't know. It just seems like there's a possibility there where the Batch's send off from her is her some sort of great redeeming gesture, and then she dies, in a classic Star Wars explosion, because we know that's the only way that someone can die in Star Wars and not be brought back. But even then, Echo got brought
some
back.
Kind of
a reactor shaft,
falling off a shaft or a precipice or something.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so going back to, I don't know with Sid. I also want to say that I hope that she's changed, or that she is in the process of changing, with her encounter with, Clone Force 99, because I think we can all attest to the fact that there are certain people that when they're in your life, they change you, right? They are change makers, and they help you to sort of lean more in maybe a virtuous direction, or making those choices. And it's pretty cool that we're talking about this in an episode that is all about choices, really, because the race, Riot Racing, is about making a set of certain choices in order to win, because of all the unpredictable things that happen on the course. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but that's life, right? It's a very kid-friendly way of introducing the concept of just how unpredictable and challenging life can be. And, some people are going to try to take you down and some people are going to, try to get ahead of you. And how are you going to do in the race? Right. So I thought that was pretty meta for this episode. Yeah. So the Bad Batch definitely have some questions to address for their future, and we will wait with bated breath to see what those are. But as we move on in the story, Teo takes a tumble and leaves the crew without a racer. So, but at the same time, I love that he was very dramatic about it. He's like, I regret nothing. That's just the last thing that he yells before just like going out.
Yeah, the most dramatic droid.
Put him back together, that he just dies from someone else.
I just love it. He's so dramatic. And so Tech, he's been analyzing the racing, and he steps in, and like a great cartoon bad guy, Malegi says, I never stop a fool from giving his life to make me rich. So that was very bad guy. So we start this race, and as we said in the beginning, totally expected, but still hilarious introduction of all these racers and their colorful nicknames. And then Tech, he's just Tech. That's it. And Tech ends up surprising everyone, right? He actually, his strategy is to ditch his weapons, and then he speeds through the tunnel less taken, as Robert Frost might say.
Yes.
And he wins the race. And I've got to wonder if Tech's strategy of, kind of the best offense is a good defense, will somehow tie into where the Bad Batch goes from here, or what his role might be in the future. Because it seems like, I don't know, just maybe it was just for this episode, but maybe we'll see it pop up again. So, and Sid promises to make it up to Tech or the whole Bad Batch. I'm not quite sure what that would be. Do you think it was just Tech or the whole Bad Batch?
It had to have been all of those three at least. They were all there for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love the race scenes in this. They were fabulous, and just, I mean, so familiar and yet so Star Wars at the same time. You have ads flashing on the walls of the tunnels. Like every sporting event out there now has digital ads flashing everywhere. I mean, on the boards of hockey rinks and football stadiums floating in what looks like midair. There's just ads everywhere. And it was fun to look at those, and saw on another podcast viewing of it that there was even like a food advertisement for like the meat on a stick, and you had Wrecker had the meat on a stick. It was just like really classic. Yeah,
that's great.
It was just it just felt so familiar yet fun, and definitely Star Wars. The colors, the matching flags to the pod racers, and it kind of had that old world feel with the canopies for shade, like the Coliseum. It was pretty cool.
I wonder if we'll see a ad for Mantel Mix. I'd have to go back and watch again.
I know, it all happens so fast. You just want to like slow down and go frame by frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've played some Mario Kart in my day, but I haven't played like a whole lot of other like racing video games. On a regular basis or anything. So, how comparable would you say was this to the other kinds of racing games out there? If either of y'all can kind of chime in on that, because I really felt like it was, that's sort of the almost, it seems like the standard now for racing games. Like you can't just have, race down a track, right? There's got to be all these different distractions and, things that are coming at you and people that are trying to get you.
Trying to think here of the most analogous racing game. Mario Kart's a really good one, actually, because it was just as colorful. and there's, you know, weapons and stuff in Mario Kart, and the whole map can be changed by just dropping a blue shell on someone. Trying to think here. I was getting sometimes some like Splatoon vibes, where Splatoon is just, you know, covering tracks in paint. It's not a racing game, but definitely felt sometimes like you're kind of just in this Splatoon world. Splatoon combined with Mad Max, I guess, is the best way I could put it. Because of all the colorful droids, they all seem to have their own color schemes, and they color coded their little pod racers, or not pod racers, they're riot racers, I guess. But yeah, those are the two games that I thought of when I was just watching the scenes. I was like, yeah, this is just like Mario Kart.
Kathryn, did you have anything to add?
Well, I never did any racing games, but I always wanted to go do a day at NASCAR. But I don't know how to drive a stick shift, so I never got my chance. I just do it on the expressway now, so if you see me coming, steer clear.
Watch out.
Me and my Prius will get over to the right lane.
Yeah, I mean, I also haven't been to like a vehicle, any kind of vehicle racing, but I have been to a horse race. And the announcing was definitely similar. Like, I have watched NASCAR on TV and everything, but the announcing was part of, you know, the greatness of just watching a race. And I believe if I saw this correctly, the voice actor who played Teo also voiced the announcer. So multi-talented guy, really, really fun. And the other thing that this reminded me of, besides racing, was professional wrestling, like entertainment wrestling.
Yes.
Because of like all the characters, they have their own names, you know, they've got their own personalities and their own moves in particular, like the Venom Crunch is what I'm thinking of.
Actually, the announcer was not the same guy who did Teo.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
He did Jet Venom.
Oh, Jet Venom.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan
That's what I was,
Lippow? Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me on that. Yeah, so really interesting to watch, as, you know, again, as Kathryn was saying, like all these different characters, but then, you know, it's so cool with Star Wars how they can flesh out this character for, like, you know, what do they look like? Where are they from? What is their kind of like move? You know, their racing personality. And then this is as much as we'll probably see them.
Mm-hmm. And then there'll be a book written about them or something.
And I loved how it was Tech with his goggles, looking like little Anakin with his goggles, coming through at the end for the big win. So it was just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I like how Tech was, he kind of like spun out at the end, and you didn't know if he was going to like tumble through and be like in 3 pieces by the end of the race, but win anyways. So I thought that was really fun as well. How they kept us in suspense, even though we knew, he's going to win.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved how Tech was like reluctantly yet loving taking the applause.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cute because I had just watched, they did a replay of date myself again, a pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, the bird, Mark Vidritz or whatever his name was. He had a great game, like a shutout or whatever. And he didn't want to come out and take a bow. And the manager told him, get out there. And he's just like, hey. And then he started like, wow, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, we got a lot from, I think, Tech's personality, maybe like more in this episode. And I know Father Andrew Kinstetter posted on Slack that he was so happy to see a Tech-centered episode. And I think, you know, before this, we sort of basically could just summarize Tech's character as, you know, the data cruncher and the guy who wants to be logical. But I don't know, like after watching this episode, what other qualities what other characteristics would you use to describe Tech and his personality that we got to see?
I feel like Tech's opening up to a bigger world beyond what he was trained for. He seems to like really be exploring things, and just like I said, the way he like absorbed the cheers from the crowd, I was looking at him going, okay, he's not going to retire to go chupa fishing. He's going to be retired to go into the racing world or something like that.
I think that he definitely showed how he wins, because we've seen a lot of racing or flying scenes, and we've seen a lot of different Star Wars characters show how they win, and Tech didn't win in some of the typical Star Wars fashions. He didn't pull off a crazy maneuver, really. At the last moment, he did pull some sort of a Anakin Skywalker, Han Solo incredible maneuver. I compared him a bit to how Hera flies, where Hera flies kind of like Tech, where they both seem to really be in control and making very deliberate decisions. And that's when I saw, oh yeah, Tech, of course Tech dropped his weapons, because he's not interested in pulling a fast one from behind the back and winning like everybody else is. He's just going to win in his optimized go-get-'em way that doesn't really care if you're on the board or not. Like he seemed to kind of be going for more of a just time trial speed run sort of at the race. It didn't almost matter to him whether there were other racers on the track or not. So that was really fun to see, a very different style of Star Wars flying than Han or Anakin, or I guess most recently Luthen. All the typical different ways that Star Wars shows people winning in a flying situation.
Yeah, that's a super keen observation. I think looking at the previous episodes, like the first arc where the crew was encountering the separatist culture that Tech, we talked about it on the show, not me because I wasn't on the show, but just reflecting on how Tech was interested to realize that there were cultures and people before the wars, and the fact that the world is opening up, like you said, Kathryn, to him in a way that it's interesting because he knows all these languages and he knows all these different things, but it seems like now he's finally learning to apply them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that he is kind of sort of learning to live. It's like, a soldier coming out of the military and coming back into civilian life, right? Like they have to learn about all these things that have happened outside of war and battle and the military that have just developed in the outside civilian world. And they're all sort of like kids in a way, besides Omega, obviously, but they're all having to kind of find their own place and their own identity. And that always seems to be the theme when it comes to the clones, right? But it's just, it's so important to Star Wars in general.
Yeah,
well, the clones are kids.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder what we're going to see next with Rex. Is he going to have that same big character develop, or will it always be just big old Rex, a little kid?
Yeah, do you mean Wrecker?
Wrecker, sorry.
Yeah.
Wrecker. I said Rex, Wrecker.
Yeah. Ryan, what were you going to chime in?
Oh, well, I was going to say, like, the clones are all kids. I mean, they haven't been around with the equivalent adult experience. They just happen to be big. So I think that too is really important to keep in mind, that you've got a lot of soldiers walking around the galaxy that have only been alive for, it's not even a decade. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, it wouldn't even be a decade because Boba Fett is
still a kid.
Still a kid. Only Rex would 12? Be older than a decade, really, depending on when Clone Force 99 was created, because probably Echo and Rex, or Boba and Rex, were made around the same time, since he's a Generation 1. So
yeah, and the kind of the neat thing too is that with, like you were saying, they're all kids, and the neat thing is that Clone Force 99 has a family, right? Like kids need a family in order to help inform who they are and where, what direction to kind of go in, and just to sort of learn how to be in the world. And for the clones, they really are sort of alone in a way, besides having each other. But if not all the clones have each other's backs, as we've sort of been seeing with the episode that we just had about Crosshair, with him kind of being an outcast, and some of the clones are starting to go AWOL, and so we know that there's specific clones that are going out in the world and having their own life, but it's kind of sad to think about how those that are doing that are really alone in a way. And Clone Force 99 has one another, and they are a family. So I wonder how different their lives will be, and their personalities will be, and their personal development will be, because they have each other and they have a family, as compared to some of the other clones that we're familiar with.
Does give them a good family base to draw from.
Yeah. And they have someone who actually is her age. Like, her physical development reflects her age, which is kind of interesting to think about, because the Batch and, Omega's part of the Batch, but the Batch and Omega are both the same age, but isn't that the mystery though? Like, do we really know if Omega's if Omega really is the same age as them?
Slightly younger, maybe.
I thought because she said she'd
be older.
She's older than them, because she says she was there when they were made.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I think even Tech pointed out that she's older in the first season, which is weird to think about, but
it is. Yeah, especially considering, again, like someone's personal development. Like, they have a whole lot of battle and strategy and those kind of, that sort of knowledge and experience, life experience. And we kind of don't really know all that much about what Omega's life experience has been, right? Like, up to this point, when she was living in a lab, I guess, was she like taking care of other people? Was she just kind of sitting around? Like, what sort of, knowledge does she have? There's so much that we still don't know about her, which makes her so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see what other skills she has, what she's picked up.
Right. Yeah. So, and then, just the dynamic of her working with them, and she kind of brings like a human touch, so to speak, of just being a person in the world. And I wonder, the clones that go off on their own outside of the Bad Batch, who may not have someone like that initially, how do they learn that, and I don't know, there's a lot to think about.
When you think about it too, she's definitely living out the feminine genius, because she is very nurturing with them. So she's bringing in something none of them have, and she's a little girl.
Yeah, that's true. She is. Well, there's one more thing that we didn't talk about with the episode. which is it finally ends by saying, Malegi says the crew should watch their backs. And that's how we end the episode. Mm-hmm. So is that foreshadowing? What do you think? Or is it?
I want it to be.
No.
No, don't let it be. It could be, though.
The first thing I thought of when he said that is maybe we're going to see for the first time, well, I guess the second time, because the first few episodes kind of showed this, but what does the batch look like when they don't have everybody there? Are we going to have to see, and maybe there could be a prolonged time when Hunter and Echo get caught up in a mission and there is to be a long rescue mission where it's only Tech, Wrecker, and Omega. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we have to see them get rescued, and maybe we'll finally see a prolonged time when the batch has to adjust to not being all together and not being able to rely on everyone's collective skills in a different way. That was the first thing I thought of when he's like, watch your back. I'm like, oh man, I see a prolonged like reunion arc now. What's going to happen?
With Crosshair?
Yeah, with Crosshair or with just the batch being separated. We'll have 2 over here and 3 over there and 1, who knows where Crosshair is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the writers are planting these seeds of I don't know if doubt is the best word, but seeds of doubt in terms of wondering whether Crosshair is going to stay with the Empire or not, whether he kind of is developing a conscience or not, whether the Bad Batch, the other members of the Bad Batch are safe, especially because Sid is the closest person to them at this point outside of their unit. And so for them to be then for Sid's trustworthiness to be called into question now is, I think, supposed to make us feel like they are really, there's something big is coming, something possibly drastic or dramatic or however you want to put it is possibly on the way, very possibly on the way. And if it's not, then they are really leading us on, because to me, those are some big hints.
It might be one of those things where it'll look like Sid's going to betray them, and at the last minute, she'll turn on whoever is against the clone troop. So we'll see. It could be fun. It could be scary. It'll definitely be Star Wars.
What role do you guys think the batch is going to play in the galaxy in the long term? Because I have an idea based on what we saw in the Kenobi series with the sort of Jedi rescue and protection underground. I have an idea that the batch is going to be the part of that particular group rather than like become part of a rebel cell, because I think that fits well with how we've seen the batch move towards a more compassionate role, but also very much their tactical experience as a unit. At least that's where I think the batch is going to be ending up at the end of this.
Oh, I'll buy that theory. I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, it is good. I go back to what Echo was kind of talking about a couple of episodes ago, where he was saying that, they're not doing enough to fight against the evils and the injustices that are being caused by the Empire. And I wonder if what you're describing, Ryan, would be enough to satisfy Echo, or whether he would want something more, directly going against the Empire, right? So I almost wonder if the batch is going to split up in some capacity. If I had to guess, I would say that Wrecker and Omega are going to end up together. Or Wrecker may be someone who sacrifices himself in the end for Omega or for the Batch, or, you know, any member of the Batch. Just by the way that they're writing the characters, you know, that's kind of where I'm going with that in my mind. But I really, I think that they definitely planted that seed of Echo speaking about that for a particular reason. That the Batch is going to, at some point, whether it's sooner or later, like in an ultimate kind of way, that they're going to be doing something to try to fight against the Empire. We'll see. There's lots more coming. Do you guys have any other thoughts or reflections on this episode?
The scene that made me laugh out loud was when that random guy got shot.
Oh gosh. In the
audience.
In the audience, yes.
And Teo's final crash.
Oh,
like,
goodness,
Teo,
yes. Those are some really funny moments.
And yes, and what was it? And like, we're repairing Teo, and all of a sudden he realizes, where are my arms? Where are my legs? A little bit more dramatic than C-3PO and Chewbacca in that in Cloud City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Super fun and lots of food for thought. Now, I do want to, before we kind of get into the standard closing of things here, I do want to mention that there's been some discussion about sending in feedback. Our SQPN Discord server has had some discussion because we've been having some Ask Me Anything forums where you all, everyone, can ask questions to different members of the SQPN community in an Ask Me Anything time period. And some people were wondering if they could start sending in those kind of Ask Me Anything questions for podcast panelists on shows and have us answer those questions. So I definitely wanted to remind everyone that we accept feedback, questions or comments about any kind of Star Wars anything. It does not have to be specifically directed to the most recent show or content that we were discussing on a podcast. So if you want to send in your questions for any of us and just anything fun at all, as well as, of course, your feedback on our discussions, what you thought of the episodes, and just your excitement about Star Wars, please do. You can email us, starwars@sqpn.com. You can also comment on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Or you can tweet us at SQPN. And while you're doing that, be sure to leave us a like, leave us a share the podcast as well. So we would like to take a brief moment to recognize and thank the people who made this podcast even possible, our patrons. And this week we want to shout out to John Eric C., Joe E., Paul C., Kathleen B., and Brian D. And you too can help StarQuest continue our mission by becoming a patron at sqpn.com/give.
This StarQuest show is brought to you by Tim Shevlin's Personal Fitness Training for Catholics, providing spiritual and physical wellness through personalized nutrition, workout and prayer programs, and daily accountability check-ins. Learn more by visiting fitcatholics.com.
Definitely subscribe to the podcast. Let your friends and family and coworkers and everybody else know about Secrets of Star Wars. And you can find our previous episodes at sqpn.com/Star Wars. Be sure to leave us a review and a rating as well. All right. Well, next week we will be back to discuss the 5th episode of The Bad Batch Season 2. Until next time, Kathryn Laffrey, thank you for joining us on The Secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you. This is fun.
And Ryan Nafziger, great to have you as well.
Thanks. Always happy to be here.
And everybody out there, send in your racer name for Ryan Nafziger.
And I will change my Discord profile to it.
And once again, I am known as the Bendu, Angela Sealana. Thank you for listening to Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Doctor Who. Find the show wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who.